Blog Talk Radio.
Witches, Desperados, I'm back. Did you miss me? I missed you. I know things have been a little bit out of sorts lately. I'm on, I'm not on. I'm on here, I'm on there, I'm on everywhere. I got the YouTube channel back up and running, kids. So whenever you want to, you can pretty much listen to the show anywhere you want now. I'm on all the podcasting systems, and I'm on the YouTubes, although it's not video. I do that on purpose as well, you know. But anyway, Desperate House Witches is not a GPG or even an R-rated show, so if bad language, bodily function, dirty talk of any kind might upset you, this is not the show for you, but, you know, that's why you're here. Why I'm here. Desperate House Witches is brought to you by the amazing, wicked one herself, the incredible Dorothy Morrison. Please check out wickedwitchstudios.com for all of your witching needs. She's probably listening to this and thinking, what the fuck is wrong with her? Anyway, the mystery packages, they're fantastic. I just got mine. So check out the mystery packages, the magical mystery packages from wickedwitchstudios.com. I'm telling you, I got my box, and I was so excited because I got the one with the reading, and let's just say that everything that came in the box was exactly what I needed, even though I didn't know I needed it. It wound up all coming in quite handy. So that's wickedwitchstudios.com. Check out the Facebook page to get that special link. Do it while you can. It ends at the end of the month. All right. And before I bring on my guest, just want to remind everybody that Mystic South is happening in July. Yes, come see me at the Mystic South Conference. It is mystic-south.com. And Mystic South this year is from Friday, July 14th through Sunday, July 16th in beautiful Atlanta. Come and see us. I'm dying to see all of you guys, and I've missed you terribly. All right, for the hour, here's my friend, Jaymi Elford. Jaymi's an author, tarot reader, fire spinner, cat friend. She's got 30 years of experience. Blows my ass away. And Jaymi's got a new deck out, Runic Tarot. This is very pretty. If you are of the Viking way, this is a very, very, very lovely, lovely deck. And they plopped it on my desk this afternoon. I'm like, really? You couldn't have gotten this to me a little faster, but that's all right. I'm happy to have it, Jaymi. Thanks for coming to hang out with me today. How have you been?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. It's great to be back. I looked it up, and it's almost been an exact 1 year since I was last on, so I love this. And, you know, it's funny when decks, appear, and, I've been telling, on a lot of the Instagram lives that I'm doing with my friend Amber Highland at the Cartomancer, it's like, we're doing it live. We'll do it right in the moment, So, yeah, things are going well here. Last we spoke, I think I was preparing for kittens, so I actually have year-old kittens that we received on the summer solstice of the 22nd of last June, and they are fantastic. A brother-sister pair. Brother's named Jasmine, a.k.a. Jazz, or I like to call him my little bug because he is active. He loves to flirt around, and he's addicted to those cat springs, which are those bigger plastic things, just little springs you can find at grocery stores. And, oh, my God, he fetches. He catches and fetches. I'll throw it down the hall. He scurries down, catches it, brings it right back, and then, hours on end. So his sister is Lily. kind of shortly named from Lilith, but mostly Lily, or Lily Boo, as I like to call her, Boo, because she's more of she's a discerning kitty where she's not quite sure what to think of new people and stuff, and she tends to hide, but they are lovely, lovely felines, and they are my new little best buddies, and it's just been fun to be their new caretaker and everything. So, but that's affected a lot of what I do now, because those first few months I kind of had to take a hiatus from the Cartomancer, from writing and kind of doing a lot of stuff because they wanted all that attention, and I just wanted to pair bond with them and everything.
Oh yeah, and that's
I
mean, like any small being that you're bringing into the family, whether it's a human or non-human entity, you've got to spend that quality time, and there's a trust level that has to be achieved, and you want all that affection. I mean, of course, I think it's lovely that you have both of them.
Thank you. It's been a real treat to have the kitties back because we lost our last cat from our clouder named Imoen, Imoen, back just when the pandemic started. So it's been an interesting time of learning lessons and kind of rediscovering everything, and my writing, doing deck work with the runic and everything has all kind of blended into this weird melting pot of where I'm sitting at this crossroads of trying to figure out what is a right size for me. And I say that in a decluttering methodology. I say that in my personal and my public practices, as well as the crossroads of burnout and having done overdone stuff and underdone stuff. And I'm just trying to figure out, like I said, what that right size is. So I'm so glad that we get to talk about all these, items today.
I am too, because I will tell you, in addition to, and we talked a little bit before we went on air about the fact that burnout is such a real thing, but I love the fact that you tie decluttering in with it, because I am a chronic collector. I can't say I'm a hoarder. It's not like that. But if I see, for example, I get a pair of shoes that are comfortable, I have to have two pairs. It's not the same color, but you know what I mean? So obviously, someone who collects crystals, I have tons of shinies. Unfortunately, I'm not the only person in my family who likes to collect as well. I think my son has his own weight in trolite crystals right now because he just loves it so much. I mean, there's just so many things that we surround ourselves with for comfort, but there's a point of diminishing returns. And I love the fact that you blend these things together, because quite frankly, one of the things I see in myself and other folks like us is that we all do tend to kind of overdo in our collections. I have so many tarot decks and so many oracle decks, and I love them all, and they're all special for different reasons, including your new one, by the way, Runic Tarot. This is a really nice deck. It's a different theme than what I'm used to, because I generally don't lean towards the more Viking style, but it reminds me a lot of my first husband, and those are the pleasant memories. So, because they were not all pleasant, but it does remind me of him in during the good parts of our marriage. So I was looking at the cards and kind of falling into the photographs and feeling like, oh, yeah, I remember when we were this happy. So it's been a kind of a comforting deck in that regard when I look through it. What made you go to this particular style this time? Oh,
well, number one, I was asked to do it, to partner once again with Jack Sephiroth for his art. So I'm so glad. It's not often that you get to partner with the same artist, especially when you're doing work for hire type writing, which is kind of what I was doing with Lo Scarabeo. I guess I'm the way I imagine it is that they either liked what I did enough on the Heaven and Earth and decided to pair me up again, or maybe Jack. I'd like to think maybe Jack liked what I had said or done, and that they wanted me to, pick it up again. In any case, I have a fondness for heathenry / Viking kind of lore and their myths and mysticism. And while my friend Anna taught me kind of how to use and do runes, I find that, to me, I don't use them divination based because it's more of a script. I use them more as sigils and sigil work. So that's how I've kind of blended the runes into my life. But it was so much fun to do this deck because typically you'll get images, right? If you're lucky, you get all the images. If you're not, you have to figure out how to write a book with maybe ideas, like this is what we're going to try and do. And with the Runic, I did get all the images. So a couple of things that I did was I pulled up all my own notes from having learned runes through 2021, I think. We did a online class locally for it with my friend Anna. And so I had all my notes there, and I just kind of hunted and looked for the runes. I also did a lot of research because I wasn't given a sheet until after I had done the book on which, in the majors, there are gods. Many of the gods or many of the characters from the myths are appearing in the major arcana. So I had to look up and reference certain things, like who was on the strength card, who was, who's here, or what mythology portion did this, scene come from. And I'm happy to say I kind of nailed it for the most part. We had to do a little bit of, restructuring in post because of, certain documents coming in to me afterwards. But I spent, oh my God, a month just like working on this. I was listening to modern but yet archaic groups. Like I was listening to Wardruna, Halung, Danheim, because I love that industrial flair on with the Viking kind of aspect to it. And it's just great music, and it just put me into that headspace of, the kind of, not necessarily the culture, but of learning the myth or kind of lending that eye towards what this could have been like back then. And so I kind of also had the idea of writing the book so that tarot people could get get insight into runes and what runes could mean. And then on the flip side, since I have a lot of friends that are rune readers first and then they go to the oracle or tarot second, I wanted them to kind of extrapolate, be able to understand that I was trying to honor each rune as well as kind of connected in with tarot meanings in some certain way. So that was kind of like a goal. And then I also wanted to, honor the culture and the stories and all those magical threads that connect the Norse gods and, the people back in the day, as I like to say, or even today, something that modern heathens or diviners can have an appreciation. Plus, at the time, I was learning how to kind of decouple a lot of the gender binaries. So I tried to keep a neutral gender profile for the figures on each card because especially considering at the time I was writing that book, my wife was going through some gender confirming surgeries. I wanted, her to be able to see herself in this deck somewhere, or, non-binary folks to, be honored by the gods. I mean, yes, I use gender of the gods where appropriate, and I think I even snuck in that Loki is a they, them, because to me, they really are. As that trickster, having that ability to give birth and everything, it was very important that I kind of gender neutral. Now, sometimes, though, when you write these things and you do your research and everything, the publisher has the capacity to pull out information. Like I did try and bring up the idea that certain runes were co-opted by white nationalist groups, and all that, but I think they took that information out. But my first draft did try and include some of that just to show the history, the intent, the idea that, this is a system that does as far as I know, many of the people that honor these cultures and these ideas don't, lend into white nationalism or, the extreme stuff. So, but like I said, it was a lot of fun. It was just so much fun because I got to look at like Norse mythology.com on the runes. I looked up, some rune stays and bind runes, because the way the deck is structured, you have most of the Elder Futhark on the major arcana. The minor arcana mostly kind of, it includes the majors, but it also includes the younger, the lesser Futhark. And then I believe it was the swords or the wands, one of the suits went into Anglo-Saxon staves in a way. So it was really kind of fun to kind of blend those three together in a way that kind of made sense, because the majors all had one or two, depending on what was going on. The minors mostly had like a sentence, like they had a couple of runes on it, and then the bind runes were on the court cards. So I did try and add in like magical spells and stuff. And again, maybe one day I'll release that information depending on what got in the book and what didn't. I know some of my information on how to use it magically didn't get in, so I might release, tidbits on how I looked at the bind runes and everything. So yeah. A lot of cool stuff went into this. I think that's important.
Yeah, I think it's important that you do that because intention is important. And if we are, honoring and pulling everybody in, as it were, I think it's important for the intention and for your vision to be shared so that it's understood. Because when people only get certain bits of information that the author wants them to have, I find that misinterpretation can happen very easily, and sometimes people don't realize they're actually being represented, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I love the idea. Yeah, I love the idea that you would release that. Even separately from the deck, you know what I mean? Just so folks know what your particular vision is. I think it helps folks make a decision to support good artists who, want to include everyone. I'm real big into including everybody because I come from a world where there wasn't a whole lot of inclusion, and I hate that.
God, no kidding.
So,
like,
yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I have very rarely do I get to speak with her, but my ex-girlfriend and I are still in contact, and this is somebody who I love very much, and we grew up in a time where our relationship was not really okay to have. Both actively bisexual. And, we actually come from a time where we were told we didn't exist. So, yeah, I know
well,
a little bit.
Still being said today. It's like bisexual erasure is still going on, I think. In some places, where I've got some bi friends that are married, to men. And so, it's perceived heteronormative. But then, they have to remind people that, no, I still think women are adorable and cute, and, I still get crushes. So it's wild that, bis get a bad rap.
Yeah, we do. I am obviously, well, not obviously, but folks who have listened to the show know that I am, in fact, married to a man right now, and who I love. Oh, my gosh, I love this person so much. But, I also learned that it's not just bisexuality that I have, it's pansexuality, because I really don't care what's attached. And I didn't learn that there was a real word for that until, I don't know, the last decade. So I was like, oh, yay. It even better explains me. Yay. That's cool.
Yes, I love English. I love English for that, because it's still such a vibrant, living language, even though it's got its roots in colonialism, and it's structured in a way where, you have to be born into the culture to really, really get the nuances, which is fucked up and sad. But the fact that we now have all these great terms and definitions to describe our gender, our sexuality or non-sexuality, as well as our romantic relationships. Like for me, just in this past couple of years, especially with my life's journey, I've discovered that I am gender void, where when I think about, I use she, her pronouns only because I was assigned female at birth. But when I think about who I am and where I fit, it's like I don't need my outer sleeve. I see people for who they are. Yes, I use the correct pronouns. I'm not, trying to diss pronoun usage at all. But for me, I'm not a they, them. I'm not, non-binary. I'm not masculine because I prefer the form that I was born into. But I don't necessarily 100% identify with being a woman or being feminine. And so when I found gender void, I was like, that kind of fits. But again, I still use she, her pronouns because I don't know what pronouns I would use other than that. And then I'm asexual. I'm very much, I like to cuddle, hold hands, kiss, sleep next to somebody, but I don't go anything further than that. And then like you being pansexual, I am pan-romantic because I love people for the diversity of everything. So I love that, through tarot and this journey through the pandemic that we've been able to figure out certain things about us. It's weird. It's like the pandemic has sped up and yet slowed down aspects of our life as we, talk and focus on like the burnout and stuff, It's really kind of weird.
No doubt. But again, and we had talked about this a little earlier as well. Well, I don't think the pandemic has ended necessarily. Obviously, the height of it has slowed down a considerable amount, where now masks are not mandatory in all of the spaces. Although, fortunately, doctors' offices still do require that. Well, most of them do. Some of them don't actually. I was surprised to find out.
Yeah.
I'm
glad my allergist does. Yeah. I still stay masked in most places where I can, so I agree with you.
Yeah, so, that's cool that people are still being cautious. I also think it depends on the state sometimes. The South tends to, where I live in the South, I'm from New York, but I live in North Carolina, and interestingly enough, what I see down here is the desire to not want to accept things as they are. They would rather deal with things as they would like them to be, which is a very, how shall I say this nicely, a very Trumpian attitude. Although my end of town where I live, I'm very lucky. I live in a super, 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 super liberal area. In a very liberal city. So I've got the best of the best, and I'm very, very lucky to be where I am. But yeah, it's interesting to watch people go through their different machinations of reality over, what's the pandemic and what's not, and we all get a lump in our throats every time somebody has the sniffles or a cough or whatever it is. It's a little bit of the shell shock, I think, that it happens.
Yeah, like whenever I hang out with my friends, I remind them that I've been inside or whatever. Plus, we offer masks. It's that question of mask, consensual hugs. But for me, it's like because of my asthma and my allergies and stuff.
Right.
I play that game. It could be is it COVID or is it just my everyday, body doing its thing? Because a lot of the symptoms that I believe the new strain has is very allergetic like, and it's just kind of like. It's weird. But I did get it last year in July, coming home from the Witch City tarot gathering, sadly, on the airplanes and stuff, because it was just a mess to get me home through storms and stuff from North Carolina. But so I have had it, and it's not something I would want anybody to have because it's no fun. For me, it was weird because I had most of the brain fog. I wasn't able to really do anything. I slept and I had a headache.
Yeah.
But it took away my allergies. Like, I could actually snuggle the cats if I wanted to. You know, it was that weird stage of, I've got cats. I know that they could get it. And how much do I want to snuggle and play versus not be near them and, you know, protective. But I did get on the antiviral, and so that helped a lot.
Right.
And, you know, I'm better. But, you know, again, when you get sick, even just normal sickness, you know, all this stuff, you know, the symptoms of burnout, you know, emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion, you know, it also lowers our immune system and everything. Plus, the pandemics kind of made us all CPTSD through all this, you know, around the world where, you know, you would think with all the science and all the medical expertise and the technology that we have, you know, it's that we could, here's a little new disease that puts us and isolates us in a weird way to where we can't do anything. And a lot of us pagans find space to gather, you know, like whether it is in festivals or conferences or even locally outdoors. And here's the thing that basically says, nope, you can't do any of that stuff. And then we all kind of get weird about it, you know, we start, you know, at least for me, it was, when I mean weird, I mean like, you know, I start questioning who is actually going to care about my, you know, my comorbidities, you know, like the allergies, asthma, type 2 diabetic stuff versus, you know, the normalcy of, you know, all this protection and stuff. It's a weird and delicate balance that kind of all blends into that. It adds this awkward, strange level to all the burnout that everybody's facing of having to adjust indoors. And now that we're kind of opening things up, so to speak, or, you know, being able to kind of dip our toes back into past, you know, normalcy, you know, it's just been weird.
It is. And it's really weird if you have to work in, you know, if you're working outside of a home, which I do, and it's like, you know, I already know that there are people that I work with who, you know, do not believe in certain things. Therefore, the whole idea of, you know, a vaccine was abhorrent to them, and, you know, because they listened to certain politicians and, you know, it went a certain way for them that was not science-based, and, you know, those of us who are science-based were very concerned about that. And I mean, it made for a lot of sticky situations. And, you know, I have a lot of friends who think the way I do. However, they are kind-hearted folks and are like, well, you know, you can't break up relationships with people just because they have a different point of view politically. And my feeling is, but on the contrary, I absolutely can, because it tells me everything I need to know about you as, you know, as a moral person, what your morals are, what your concerns in the world are. That was a very simple test for me, and I had to eliminate certain people for that reason. You know, I'm still eliminating people because of, you know, certain belief systems going into a new election season. Just saying. But yeah,
I know. Like last time we talked a lot about this. Like I divorced my family, so to speak, because of the way that my wife, you know, my relationship with my partner was changing at that time and stuff. And we're still married. We're still happy. Things are even better, you know, because we've found our footing. She is very much, you know, sexually active, and we've opened up our relationship to accommodate, you know, the fact that, you know, with a new body and everything, she wanted to experience new things that I couldn't give to her. So she's got a girlfriend. We have this integrated kind of poly family where her girlfriend has her own house and own, you know, life and stuff, and we have the house we bought together. But, I mean, navigating all that has been, it's all about that communication and stuff and clearing. Again, you know, I keep going back to this idea of right-sizing and clearing things. It doesn't have to be the stuff in your house. It can be relationships. It can be ideals, you know, or opening up to, you know, simplifying your life and stuff. And that all goes into this, you know, melting pot of, you know, balancing your life and spirituality where, you know, it's just, it just melts and comes down to this thing. And with paganism and witchcraft, we are so fortunate that we can trailblaze our own paths. That, yes, we have commonalities between us as well as the differences between us and how we practice or what we use or keep and all that stuff, but it just makes it even better for us to figure out, you know, where we stand and who we want in that, you know, in the inner circle and rippling outwards, and what we want to contain and how we want to celebrate the diversity in life, you know?
Yeah, and I find our community is a lot more open to accepting, you know, poly families, gendered and non-gendered, you know, the full spectrum of humanness, as it were, in all of its multifaceted and multi-spectrumness, you know. And so I feel particularly safe in our community when we have these discussions, because I certainly would not have these discussions outside of that because of judgment. I mean, I have had some conversations with the regular folk who don't necessarily believe the way we believe. And, you know, to say I've gotten more than a raised eyebrow is an underestimation for sure. But, you know, it's still on me to try to educate people, but it's a slow process, you know what I mean? Because some people are like,
yes,
no, it's kind of this way, and that's the only way. And I'm like, but no, you know me, and I'm not like that, and it's not necessarily this way or that way. It could be a lot of different ways. And, you know, fortunately, the folks I do have these discussions with are not people who I think are going to shoot me or, you know, hurt me in some fashion. Sorry for using that S word. I'm so sorry. See, I can curse all day, but I got to be careful of certain words, because certain words are triggers for folks. And you know, y'all are here because I feel like a sailor, but I should have given you a trigger warning for that other S word, so my apologies. It's a real thing. This world is crazy right now, and you know, we were talking about burnout, and burnout is coming from everywhere, especially the news. Don't you think?
I agree. Yeah, I stopped watching the news or even any TV. I stopped going to all the websites. You know, I'm still in therapy. My therapists, I have two of them, they're great. They've really helped me through all this time. If you can get one, and you can, try to find the right words here, interview your therapist. You know, there's this time where you can, you know, you're partnered up, you don't know what the relationship's going to be like. You know, if the relationship is not going well and they're not giving you what you need, leave. You are it is okay to abandon that therapist or find somebody that will help you, respect you, or whatever. I'm lucky to where I have two good people that, you know, I can deal with. Of course, one of my main concerns when finding a therapist was my tarot and pagan path. So I do have somebody that is friendly and open to that, and that's something you can request when you interview them. But
absolutely,
I stopped doing the news because they kept coming around and saying, this is really affecting you. You know, you're empathic, you do all this stuff, you need to stop that. And so I only get one source of news, and that's the email list for 1440. And they cover some of the big picture stuff. They add links in. It's like listening to actual old school journalism, you know, back the stuff that we figure or we think journalists should, you know, do. And they have some fun links in there. They have scientific stuff. If there are award, you know, ceremonies coming up and stuff, they talk about that. Or, you know, add a link in so you can see the nominations and stuff. And that's about all I can take. It comes out 6 days a week. It's email only, and it's been great. It keeps me up to date with some of the bigger stuff that I feel like I need to know to kind of navigate various, you know, activism or situations at least in the States, you know, and occasionally in the world. But it doesn't do it in a way that makes me feel like it doesn't trigger any of the suicidal ideation or depression, you know, triggers that I might have. It opens that dialogue that you can have with your friends, your, you know, external family, neighbors, or whatever. And I know, like, earlier we were also talking about just being able to breathe. Sometimes that's hard. Like, again, for me, whenever I do interviews like this or big speeches in classes or just anything that's really important to me, I forget to breathe. And it's funny that you brought up, you know, your partner and who you're married to being kind of Buddhist. My next door neighbor is a Buddhist. And we have, you know, it's this great way where she and I have these dialogues about, you know, the spaces in between where we connect or where we differ. And so I get this really cool, you know, spiritual perspective that also helps me cope in a way and navigate all this stuff as the witch that I am.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting that you say that, because having a Buddhist in my life, and it's not that Buddhists don't get upset, and it's not that they don't get reactionary to the news. They do. They're human. But the perspective of bring yourself back to center. Don't let it consume you. Everything is going to be what it's going to be. You just have to, your goal is to move through this life as kindly as possible, and, you know, to accept and disseminate and share and do all of the things that bring whatever piece of comfort you can to yourself and the world around you. And, you know, having been basically a witch all my life, my first go-to is more of a, how do I put this? Because of my background and how I was raised, it's more of a violent way to go, in the sense of it's more action and, you know, make sure you stop this bad thing from happening because somebody is out to get you, or our group, or whatever it is, because a lot of the time that was the reality. You know, back in the 70s and the 80s, we didn't talk about witchcraft out loud like we do now. I mean, it was hushed voices and private meetings, and, you know, only a certain number of friends knew if they could be trusted, because you were afraid if this information got out. And then getting information, you know, we had less than 24 writers when I was coming up that were really, who had books available in a large sense. So, yeah, I mean, we've come a long way, and it's wonderful, but we still have a really far way to go. And what makes me so concerned is how it appears like we're going backwards, and that gives me anxiety, Jaymi. It gives me terrible anxiety. So it all has to go back to breathing, so I don't hyperventilate and, you know, freak out.
Well, and that, you know, again, that goes back into burnout and stability and self-care, where a lot of what I'm doing is trying to separate other from, you know, from me. Like, you know, what are my core tenets? You know, creativity, divination, health, being a good cat mom are kind of my primary focuses right now. Writing, you know, that goes in the creativity side. But, you know, that I figure if I can just put a container or, you know, a box or a circle around all of that, those items, and focus on that, I know that that'll sustain me. It'll stabilize me and make me feel safe. You know, hey, look, alliteration. And, you know, when I have that, or when I feel that, and my adrenal glands have calmed down from all the, you know, stuff that's been pumping into my system by getting sleep, water, light, you know, a good chat like this, I can get out into the next circle of, like, you know, relationships. Who do I want in my life? Like, I'm in a poly relationship, and when people ask me who am I dating, right now I say myself, the cats, my work, because I don't, you know, like certain things that I've decided to stop doing, like putting on conventions. I will still go to conventions. I love to learn. I love to teach. But putting them on gave me a lot of stress. And so I've decided, you know, I'm willing to kind of, you know, help people when they want to put stuff on and give them, you know, suggestions, but I don't want to do it myself anymore. And so that's dropped a lot of stuff off my plate to help me focus once again on, my writing projects. Like, I'm working on a bunch of writing cool stuff, both with Llewellyn and, you know, just working on for myself right now that I can't talk about yet because I need to have the time to be able to, you know, get that stuff in motion. Or, again, building the relationship with the cats and trying to figure out right now how big they're going to be, because I want to buy them toys, but because they're ragdolls, it takes about 3 years until they stop kind of fully growing. And right now they're about 10 pounds, but they could be up to 25 pounds. So I'm trying to figure out, like, you know, what their needs are going to be when they're truly full grown and all that. So it's a lot of, like, just kind of starting with self and home, breathing. You know, I drink a lot of water. Exercise, I'm doing okay. I do it once a week with a friend of mine that comes over to our house who kind of, you know, is our trainer. But I say need, but I'm also trying to banish need from my vocabulary. I would like to start having mornings where I get up and I actually go out and walk, you know, my neighborhood and get more familiar, back into touch with the community that the Portland area that I live in, and, you know, learn once again, its nature, its rhythms, its cycles. And all this stuff is kind of, you know, witchcraft at its core. You know, we don't need, I tell people, you don't need the shiny, cool tarot decks. And a lot of the times, you know, like you and I get a lot of decks because we work with a lot of different publishers. You know, for me, it's being an associate editor of the Carter Mansion magazine. For you, it's this podcast. So we receive a bunch of stuff so that we can share, talk, and teach to everybody out there. Yeah. But, you know, that idea of, you know, capitalism has also been kind of coming in to where I try and tell people really all you need is, you know, a deck. Like, I'm also, like you, I have a lot of fun Oracle and Tarot decks, but I'm trying to do something right now where I'm just using one main deck, you know, for myself. Mm-hmm. I do have a private deck, and that's the one I'm using. I do have a public deck for readings, and that's just because I want to, again, simplify and try and get back to all those basics.
Yeah, and my difficulty in paring things down like that is the idea, or for me, the reality of different decks being different delivery devices with different messages. And my friend Deborah Burris, Dr. Burris, has, you know, said, hey, let's get together and do a swap. So I think doing swaps is a great way to get fresh decks if you're so inclined, and a great way to pass on the decks you currently have that maybe aren't serving you anymore. See, the other thing for me is, I know we you know, folks like me who have an abundance of blessings in that regard, I want to pass things along. But I also want to support pagan businesses. And I find that folks forget that pagan businesses are so important, and they need our support. And it doesn't mean, you know, that you keep everything you buy forever. Sometimes we have to remember that things that no longer serve us can be passed on to other folks who maybe cannot afford at the moment to buy the new shinies. But if you have an abundance of new shinies and you want to make room either because you have too many or you want something new, the idea of swaps or gifting, I totally encourage. You know, either do the cleaning of it before you pass it along, or instruct the gift receiver on how to do that if they're not aware of how that's done. And it can be a teachable moment and a blessing, and all of these things wrapped up in one. But I find that, you know, we do kind of tend to hoard these decks, and I'm very excited because at Mystic South this year, which I'm going to in July, we've decided to bring the decks that no longer serve, and you know, a group of us will sit down at some point and do a nice large-scale swap, I am hoping. But yes, it is important. While it's important to not have too much of anything, because we don't really need it, please remember that as you do want to support folks, to make room for those new items. You know, my mother, bless her heart, my mother's a trip and a half. My mother started off as a pagan and then became a Pentecost. Don't even ask. It's kind of wild.
No, it
but
happens.
My mother, it does. It does, and it's frightening. And I think I'm starting to get her back. I don't know. It's touchy. She's in her 80s now.
Gotcha. Yeah, one of my my wife's family, one of her uncles was pagan, and we hung out at Pantheacon until one year he stopped coming, and then I found out it's because he went back to Christianity, and he passed away, I believe, within this past year. But I kind of wonder if that's something that happens when pagans get older, where because we don't have like a set place that we go, at least the eclectic folk, like we don't have Valhalla, or we don't have some other destined good place to go when we die, that maybe, a lot of eclectics revert back because they're afraid for their soul or their spirit on the other side, which, it's been, a lot of that stuff, like leaving a legacy behind when you have kids or not kids, that pagan, aspect of it has kind of also been propping up. So it is kind of curious to hear that your mother is kind of seemingly to go down that path.
Oh, yeah. My mother has been down many of different paths, to be honest with you. I can't really keep up with her. But, yeah, she, sometimes people fall into a path that their spouse falls into, never envisioning that would be the path for them, but it does, in fact, happen. That's kind of what happened with her. But I keep saying, I keep wanting her to come back into our fold, like, Mother, the goddess is still alive and kicking, come back. But who knows at this point? It may be too late. I find it interesting that when folks have changed their practice and have changed it for so long, it's almost impossible for them to go back and do something else, because that would mean, maybe they were wrong for the last 40, 50 years, which I find interesting. It would be very difficult for my mother to say, I was wrong for 90% of your life. Yeah, I know that. I already know that. It's hard to admit. It's hard.
Well, and I'll even preface this. Again, this might be a content trigger warning for some folks for suicide. I attempted suicide in high school, and obviously I'm still here. But at the time, I wanted to do it. I felt like I didn't have an out. I didn't feel I was strong enough to, get through anything. There was a point even after that I thought I was going to live past 20. And, oh, my God, I'm 2 years from 50. How the fuck did this happen, right? But, all that, during that time, I know, I'm still here. Go figure. But all that time, like back then, I wanted to do it. I still am not, repenting or any of that, because at that time I needed to do it. And the first thing out of my mouth when I woke up was, "Where's my homework?" My parents, Linda, felt like she wanted me to repent. She's like, save your soul, or, say that you didn't want to do this. And I'm like, I can't. Sometimes you can't say that stuff. It's.
Oh, yeah.
It's, at least for me, back then I wanted to do it, and I still hold by that, that's part of my journey. That's part of my story. I wouldn't be here if that hadn't happened. If anything, I probably talked to somebody, whether it was an angel, my future self, my higher self, one of the goddesses maybe. And they, basically probably told me my path, hey, if you quit now, this is what you're going to not do, or something, And, I decided I guess I needed to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually had an attempt when I was 11, and it was because my childhood was really untenable. And, as I discussed with another guest at one point, my original thought was to get away from my father, and then my thought was to live in spite of him. And I've been living in spite of him ever since. And, he passed away when I was in my 40s. And the one thing I regret, it's so interesting because, certain things happen for a reason, not in the necessarily Mary Poppins sense, but more in the sense of, we're here, we're continuing to be here because of fill in the blank, whatever it winds up being. Because sometimes I still am not 100% sure why it didn't work, but, you know, maybe just to spite him. Maybe that's a good enough reason.
Yeah.
You know? But
I hear
I'm glad
you.
I stuck around. It's a good movie.
Me too.
I'm enjoying this movie. You know, this movie ends very quickly, I will have to say. I mean, 1 minute I was 11 and popping a bottle full of pills, and the next thing I'm 61 years old, about to be 62 this year. And, yeah,
awesome.
I'm glad I fucked that up. Glad I fucked up.
I mean, like, likewise, you know, it's funny. I mean, like, that's how I attempted suicide, was with popping pills, sleeping pills. But, you know, I agree. It's like, you know, people need to realize, or I'd like people to take away from, like, a lot of what we're talking about, because it all, like I said, goes into that cauldron, that melting pot of decisions and choices, and, you know, how to live your life authentically. And that's, you know, shit is hard. Fucking hell. The States right now, it's fucked up. And yet there are people still out there. We are still putting up the good fight. Pagans, queers, you know, you name it. And it's okay to have the feelings of, I don't want to be here. It really is. Because as Raina and I have said, you know, we've been there and we've, you know, attempted it, and we're still around. And you just need to find the helpers, you know, talk to us, reach out to us, you know, find your peace, find your balance, find that one thing, you know, that's going to keep you around and keep you talking.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because and I find it fascinating who actually does it on purpose and, like, does it. And the surprises that, you know, the surprise information you sometimes get later after they've done it, the things you don't know about another person's journey. I understand how hopeless a lot of these things can feel, especially now. Now is just, it's not just like a bad parent. Now it's like a bad country with bad, you know, people trying to take it over. And, I mean, it's crazy. But you know what? You've got to find that island of peace and spread that peace out, because it's stressful. You know, I do a news show once a month, Star Bustamante, the 415, and, you know, for a couple of reasons, like my work schedule for the next month and a half, we're not doing the June show. So I've taken this really big news break. Like, I was an MSNBC girl, and I watched CNN, and, you know, and a bit of this and a bit of that. And, you know, it all wound up being schlocky and for ratings, and watching stories get teased no matter who was telling the story. Got very fucking annoying to me. I actually right now, and, you know, I get most of my news from where? Vanity Fair.
Nice.
That's a change of pace.
Well, it's also like, you know, Vogue, Teen Vogue of all places, is also got really good news if you want a good news source. I mean, you know, I'll say it, you know, because I can. These kids today, you know, and I talk about the younger generations, you know, younger millennials and younger, it's amazing when I get to read for them or talk to them, the stuff that they are doing and trying to change. You know, being that Gen X, I was talking to another friend of mine who's a Gen X. I feel like Gen X is around and, you know, we get ignored and all that because we're holding the line. We're holding that, you know, that line, either those of us that want to go Republican, at least here in the States, you know, that go on the right-wing side or the left wing. We're holding that space so the younger generations can actually do the work, because we're doing the work that lets them actually change the ways that we want it to change.
Yeah.
At least that's my opinion of what's going on.
I'll tell you, I'm fascinated by how on the ball these young folks are, because we were not on that kind of ball when I was coming up. I'm a boomer. I'm at the tail end of the boomers. I blame a lot of the people who, like my parents, you know, pre-boomer and boomer. who just really rolled over in the name of Christianity. And it's just amazing to me how these people got sucked in because all they had to do was say Jesus and everything, no matter what they did, didn't matter. Nothing mattered. They said Jesus. Therefore, we have to follow them regardless of any bad thing they've ever done. And, I'm sorry, I was always taught that you were supposed to judge people by their deeds. Don't listen to the pretty words, watch the actions. When Trump came to power, obviously, I was like, are you fucking not listening to what you brought us up to believe? Hello? So
the way I look at that is it's the
disconnect.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But the way I look at that, it's the hold my beer and watch this folks. The ones that are like that will vote. Like, remember the California governor election that had Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it also had other big name actors in it, and I felt like any of those could have been an okay one. That was one of those to call the hold my beer and watch this. We're not going to vote for people that actually have done the work or know a good direction. We're going to vote for the reality show star and just see what happens. And I feel like there's a lot of people in the United States that will do that, just see what happens.
Okay, but now that they've seen what happens, doesn't that scare enough people to ward them off of this notion that this is a good idea? I mean, can we not disabuse these people of the ridiculousness of what they're winding up in? I mean, the idea that people saw what he did and liked it really scared me because I didn't realize that I was in a country full of that many morons. And I'm sorry, I mean, the fact that he tried to create this insurrection to take down the current government and not even let Biden be sworn in, I mean, that whole thing was just, did he get away with it? No. The problem is he almost did. And next time there will be somebody smarter. Look at what DeSantis is doing in Florida. And I have a lot of loved ones in Florida that I am constantly worried about because of, I don't know what year he's trying to get back to, because at first I thought it was the 50s. No, he's going back further. I'm dying to know how far back this moron DeSantis wants to go. And, if this is the idea of what's better than Trump, wow. People are scary. And you can't you can't stop people from running. And I think DeSantis really is going to have his ass handed to him. But we've did just so much that takes it out of us on a daily basis, just from simple information. Just the idea, having seen that once Trump made everything possible, from the most inane and banal to the most dangerous. I mean, it's exhausting. Again, this all goes back to the burnout, and it's a problem. People got to breathe. You got to disconnect from some of the information. And I say that knowing that I very rarely disconnect from the information. But that's why I have these conversations with people like Jaymi to get it through my thick skull that I have to disconnect. Because it's for my health, right, Jaymi? We've got to do it for our health.
Yes. That is, and that's the bottom line. I mean, I've learned to say no, and no is a complete sentence. And, to me, it's all about removing the stuff, clearing the clutter so that I can find my peace, find my stability, so that I can move forward and interact and engage with the world, including magic, how I want to, not as, what the world needs and stuff. I mean, once we figure all this out, then we can tackle on these bigger pictures and bigger, issues and stuff. I mean, granted, I'm kind of doing that hand in hand a little bit, like, the way we're talking right now and just other things in my daily life. But really, we need to do less to do more. And it's that overwhelm that's getting a lot of us into the burnout.
It's true. You're totally right, and I've got to learn this lesson, and I don't want to learn it the hard way, because if I learn it the hard way, I'm going to wind up really hurting myself, because I do things in an extreme way sometimes.
Yeah, it's a lesson that I think I keep coming back to. Again, you know, like as pagans and stuff, we think in circles. It'll always keep coming back, but we recognize, because we learn, and we want, you know, at least those of us that want to overcome and get out of our ruts and stuff in our brains or in our lives, we go, oh, I've been here before. What can I do it differently? How can I do this differently? Because I've found that, you know, I keep coming to right sizing. I keep coming back to this idea, you know, year after year, sometimes daily, you know, of going, you know, resetting. You know, I reset every night before I go to bed. I wake up every morning, and that gives me that space or the minimal structure that I like to have to navigate through every day, you know. And that first, you know, it could be just looking at your calendar. Oh, I got the day job from this to this. Okay. You know, and then you navigate through every hour and you figure out what how can I self-care when I get home? Whether it is food or watching a movie or going outside or doing a spell or a ritual, just to, you know, honor what you did and how you did it that day.
Ooh, what a good idea. I never thought of that. Just, you know, just do a spell to honor what you did that day. Wow. That never occurred to me. Wow. Damn, Jaymi.
It only just, that only just occurred to me right now, and that's because I don't celebrate my things. You know, I'm a published witch, right? You asked me on this podcast. This is really cool. It's an honor to be on Dwight, you know, and we don't celebrate these things. And I feel like that, you know, celebration, joy, and all this can help bring us back to a lot of stuff.
Girl. Well, Jaymi, I got to tell you, we're at the end of the hour, but I'm going to have you back on. So when we get off the air, I'm going to
be back on.
I'm going to find you another date, because apparently I need to talk to you every year to get my head together and give me ideas on how to take better care of myself, because I'm apparently not doing it without you, and you're providing insight on how to, at least for me, on how to do a better job with myself, because quite frankly, I deserve to have that level of burnout stop. I deserve to be able to take a break from, you know, the intensity of knowing what's going on in the world all the time. It's not going to change just because I am paying attention to it. And I think, I don't know if it's my ego or my fear speaking, because, you know, I always feel like, oh my God, what happens if I miss something? Well, then you've missed it, dummy. Who cares? It's not like I have the power to change the entire dynamic of what is happening in this country, and somehow it's this weird thing where it's like, I need to know. Yeah, okay, I need to know, but I also need to not take on the idea that if I'm not paying attention, something horrible is going to happen. And I think that might be part of a doomsday fear scenario that sometimes honestly plays in my head. And I'm sure if it's playing in my head, I'm not the only person who's going through it. So
no, you're not.
I'm going to say
I do that a lot myself too. I do that, you know.
See, and I'm going to say this to me, and I'm going to say this to you, and obviously to anybody who is like us, who's listening. We're not in that much control of anything. We need to be in control of our personal reality and the people we can affect change on, for their benefit, obviously, and to keep harm from others, and to do the best we can to preserve our folks and their legacies, and the good information that we want to pass to the generations after us. I think that's important. It's important to be engaged and know what's going on in the world, but the idea that something horrible will happen because you're not paying attention is silly. And I say that to myself as well as to everybody else, because sometimes I get it in my head that, oh my gosh, I didn't pay attention and now look what happened. And that was during Trump. And that's on me for being so terrified all the time, because I was terrified all the time during that presidency. It's like, I'm afraid to go to sleep because what'll I wake up to? What crazy shit did he do now? But honestly, you know, I think the best way to honor our gods is to really take care of our lives and our people. You agree?
Agreed. I do. I agree. I mean, like, you know, yeah, I mean, like, I grew up being afraid of the environment and just, you know, climate and all that stuff, you know, being that Gen Xer in the 80s and 90s. And yet here all that's coming from. I think, though, that, you know, sometimes you got to go, again, you got to go small. You got to go towards yourself first in order to, you know, help out the bigger picture things. And we need to right set our mindsets and everything and remind ourselves that I am just one person. I can't save everything, but I can save myself. I can save my partner. I can save the kitties, you know, and then once you retrain yourself to that, maybe hopefully we can, you know, then figure out with less burnout, with less stress in mind, how we can converse and deal with the global issues that we're now being faced with, because thanks to some people.
Yep. Know what you're saying. Know what you're saying. Jaymi, thank you so much. Everybody, check out Runic Tarot. It's lovely. It's really a lovely deck. Very nice to add to
Thank you.
The readings, especially if you or someone you know is into the heathen path. Really nice. Great bind rune on the cover of the box. It's just really nice, Jaymi. Well done. Well done indeed. I got to tell you. Yeah, congratulations on that. It was just released, I think, this past month in April. So you should be able to get a copy of it wherever you get your tarot. So
it'll be the small box. So there is a last year we released the full book size. So that's got more of the information. This one is just the deck version. I know it costs for the $35 one, but that's got the big stuff. If you do get the smaller one, sometimes your local used bookstore will carry the books from the decks sometimes, because they sometimes get separated. People don't want the books, and they sell that back. You can try and find that. If not, hit me up, and I'd be happy to walk you through some of the stuff that I did with the deck that's in the bigger book.
Neat. Thank you, Jaymi. Yeah. That's awesome. I really appreciate that. That's very cool. All right. Well, guys, that is it for this week. Have a most wonderful weekend. Jaymi, thank you again for being on, and I'm holding you to it. You have to come on next year, and we will book a date shortly. Sound good?
Totally. Yes, always.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much, and my love to your partner.
Thank you, and my love to yours. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.